I am so glad that you got that because such a huge message I want to get out because it disconnects people to believe that lie that you don't understand. And so it's if we don't believe that lie, then we can stay connected, and anxiety can't hurt us as bad if we're connected.
Welcome to Lemons and Curls, a podcast for moms and girls. I'm Rebecca Ann, the spirited, energetic mom.
And I'm Elena, the witty, adventurous daughter. We are so happy that you are here with us today. Listen together with your mom
or daughter while we laugh together, encourage each other, and get real about the challenges we face while trying to navigate this wacky world.
Our hope is that we can not only bring a smile to your face, but that you will leave encouraged and energized.
Welcome to Lemons and Curls.
Yay.
Yay, podcast for moms and girls. It is a beautiful morning out here.
Mm-hmm.
And
coffee this morning.
Coffee. I don't know why you're coffeeless.
I didn't make myself coffee.
Yeah, and it's taken me like 6 tries to get you to be ready to record this morning.
My brain is just not working this morning.
No, not engaged. It's a tough morning.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah. So what exciting news do you have from this last week? I should put crickets in there.
Yes. Let's see.
We have an epic fail
on our pizza oven.
We're
not done with it though, but it was pretty epic.
So I thought I was following directions correctly on these mixes of vermiculite and concrete to make the actual dome of the pizza oven, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it needs to be like this vermiculite mix for insulation and blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking maybe I got the mixes backwards. I don't know.
You had 5 parts vermiculite to 1 part concrete, and it was so crumbly. It was horrible.
But I don't know if 5 parts concrete to 1 part vermiculite was that. I need to go back and look. I might have gotten it backwards. So we added enough water to be able to form the dome. And I'm thinking, gosh, this has got to harden or something. You know, these people have this, you know, you can believe everything you read online, right?
Mm-hmm. Of course.
Yep. And we spent a couple days getting this all ready and
more like a week.
And we tried to pick it up in order to put it on top, and it just crumbled.
Yeah, it was...
it just fell apart.
It was bad.
And I knew it was going to happen, and I warned you guys ahead of time. I'm like, this is probably going to fall apart. It's okay. And I had you and Luke, who's my son, and then my husband, Jeff. We were all out there. I'm like, okay, guys, we're going to try our best to pick this thing up. But I did a poor planning to making sure that we can get our hands underneath of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I tried my best to keep it from crumbling by putting a Portland cement crust over the whole thing, right?
But the crust just separated from the vermiculite on the inside.
It did, and I thought maybe I was going to have it. I'm like, I'm going to try to save this. Try to save the time. But I'm like, it's probably going to fall apart. Do not get upset. It's okay if it falls apart. We can just break it up and start all over again. It didn't matter. Everybody was so upset. I'm like, it's okay. I'm like running around trying to keep everybody from getting mad. And so we have to start over with forming the dome, which is becoming like an engineering feat of trying to create a dome.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
We have 2 engineers in this family, and yet we still cannot figure it out.
I have a new plan.
You are a civil engineer. Didn't you go to school for this?
Oh my goodness.
That was probably very loud in the recording. Sorry, guys.
We are going to try again.
Yeah.
So I have to send your dad to the store today to pick up
the correct
some wood.
Oh, some wood. He got the wrong cement stuff too, didn't he?
Well, he didn't get the wrong stuff. It's just that Menards has type 1 and the first stuff I got was type 2.
Mm-hmm.
But regardless, it all cracked and fell apart. So it really didn't matter in the end that the type 2, which is stronger, it really didn't matter. So we are going to create a new form in place instead of trying to pick it up and move it. And that's adding like another level of complexity, but we are going to get there eventually because
we just use packing peanuts and like make a dome out of packing peanuts and then cover it in cement and like pull the packing peanuts out one by one with like tweezers or something.
Oh, that sounds like a lot of fun. Yeah, I'll go ahead and let you
That
do
would have like packing peanuts stuck all over your body because they're so staticky.
Yeah, they stick to everything. That sounds like a non-fabulous idea. I think we're going to pass on that one.
What was the movie with the styrofoam?
Bolt.
Yes, that's like one of the best movies ever.
I love Bolt.
That's the styrofoam. If you haven't seen that movie, you should definitely watch it.
It is such a cute movie. Actually, we should pull it out and watch it again. We even have it on DVD, which those just don't exist anymore, do they? And it's probably on Disney Plus.
Probably.
I think it is because it's a Disney movie, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes I get that confused because sometimes it's not a Disney movie.
Yeah.
It's like
I mean, I wish that like Minions and Despicable Me were on Disney Plus, but they're
not Disney movies.
What are they? They're Illumination.
Illumination, yep.
Illumination! That's like the only reason I remember that because like the Minions are like, Illumination! And then like the How to Train Your Dragon at DreamWorks, so they're not on it either. But we have them all. Anyways.
We have them all.
So that's a big deal.
How to Train Your Dragon movies are some of our all-time favorite ones.
And so are the books for different reasons. But
and the books and the movies do not coincide.
No.
You know, we have gotten really crazy off topic. That's kind of fun. But we do have an actual topic that we are discussing today. So before we lose everybody and their little side discussions, let's go ahead and chat about what's coming up. So today we are continuing our conversation with Jodi Aman. Yep. So if you missed part 1, you can find it either on our website. You want to tell everybody our website address?
lemonsandcurls.com. Pretty easy to remember.
And we're also, you can find us on most of the podcast listening apps.
Yep.
So if you jump to our show, you can go to yesterday's episode to get filled in.
Wait, last week's
episode.
We don't post it every day.
I think I need my coffee. We are, though, now posting every Monday.
Yes, if you missed that, we're changing our dates from Friday to Monday. And then from bi-weekly to every week.
Every week. This is going to be exciting.
Dun.
I know, it's so much fun. I'm very excited. So last week when we chatted with Jodi, we talked about her story with anxiety and then also the fact that anxiety can be cured. So it was an awesome conversation. Yes. So I highly recommend that episode if you haven't listened. But today we're going to continue that conversation about anxiety. And we're going to talk a little bit about Generation Z. Like, what does that, what is Generation Z and why?
What does it mean?
Yeah, like what kind of
in it
separates Generation Z from
I'll give you a hint.
The millennials. What?
I'm Generation Z.
You are Generation Z.
Figure this out. Yeah. I didn't even know what generation I was until we had this conversation. I'm like, I'm here.
I don't know what I am.
Yeah.
And I am Generation X. So what happened to Y?
Is that millennial generation?
I don't know.
Or is it?
I see that it's like the whole generation things kind of got
confused. No, I don't even understand the whole generation things. It's confusing.
It doesn't even seem like it really happened much, the whole generation talk, until the baby boomers. And so the baby boomers then created Generation X. And then now it seems to be a little bit more fluid.
What are they going to do after Z?
And I'll go back to A?
Why did they start at X? Like all the letters they could start at, they choose like one of the last letters of the alphabet.
We should look and see why they started with Generation X. It's weird. So anyway, we're talking about Generation Z, and you're the last generation. Just maybe that's it.
Wait, what?
And then we're also
what are you planning?
Moving on.
Bob hints at a world domination plan.
World domination. Okay, we're getting off topic again. And then we're also going to be talking about how we can feel powerless even as a sufferer of anxiety. And then also about, especially if you're a loved one looking in. And if you're suffering from anxiety or you're a loved one, you really need to listen to this because it gives you some great tips about really how to not lose that connection.
Yep.
Okay. So if you missed last week's just give a little intro for Jodi?
Yep. So she's a family therapist for over 20 years. She empowers people to become their own healer. As an anxiety survivor of mom and teens, Jodi totally gets it. Her TEDxWilmington talk, Calm Anxious Kids, and her new book, Anxiety, I'm So Done With You, which we own, by the way.
Great book.
Are changing the way we understand the current mental health crisis. You can find more about Jodi Aman at jodiaman.com. Also pretty easy to remember.
Yes.
She also has a very popular YouTube channel, TED Talk, and more.
Awesome. So let's go ahead and start chatting with Jodi.
What is your favorite zoo animal?
I guess the zebra comes to mind first. Just I think they're cool. I've always liked them. I don't know. I don't have a reason. They're cool.
You have elephants on your
I
house
do.
today,
Yes,
too.
I do. Yes.
I'd have to pick giraffes.
I should have picked elephant, but I like giraffes. I should have picked elephant because of my
Yeah, look at your beautiful.
little elephant back here.
What would you choose?
I don't know. It's kind of a hard question. Probably there was that zoo that had dolphins.
Oh.
Dolphins.
At the Dolphin Research Center in the Keys?
No, it was a zoo closer to us. It was one in Twin Cities.
In the Twin Cities? They had lots of dolphins?
Yeah. I think
Excellent.
dolphins are my favorite.
Dolphins are cool.
Yeah, I love animals. Doesn't really matter what one it is. But I like giraffes are so,
Especially baby giraffes.
they're so quiet and huge, but so.
Yeah, they're really interesting. They're my sister's favorite, and her whole house is full of giraffes.
Oh, I think she
And I love giraffes too, but that's her thing,
Yeah, can't infringe.
Would you rather play chess or checkers?
Checkers.
I don't like either one, but I'll have to choose checkers.
I'd actually have to say chess, even though I'm really bad at it. But I don't know, I kind of like it a little bit better.
Better than checkers? I'm really bad at chess.
So bad at it.
So you mentioned in your book about Generation Z. So, our daughters, right, are both Generation Z. So where is that line? Because it seems so fuzzy as far as generation. So where do you put Generation Z and why?
Well, I put them, they were born in between, they started being born, and it's always kind of fuzzy, these just different generation lines, but, upper 90s. So the upper 90s, they were born really 98, 99. One of my sons born in 99. And I have a stepson born in 91, and he's millennial. So he's not in it. What the difference is with these two, this 8-year difference between, my stepson and my firstborn is that they had devices in their hand. Not all of them, but a majority of American kids have had devices in their hand from 7th grade, like the internet. Right. So my stepson was a senior before he had a BlackBerry back then. Right. So before he had a BlackBerry, which had the internet on it, but very little access, a little bit of the internet, but such little access. But then my son in 7th grade, I made a bad decision. My son I think he had an iPhone in 7th grade. Mm-hmm. Did he start with a regular little phone? I can't remember. But they had access to the internet much younger. That made those 4 to 6 years with the internet in their hand is a huge difference in what they're influenced by and the messages that they're getting. I think there's a lot of messages that really make them feel out of control.
And as far as anxiety with this Generation Z, is it different or more? What do you see as far as...
It's the same and more. It's like the same. It's not a different kind of anxiety. It's a sense of feeling out of control, feeling worthless, feeling powerless. We're feeling it at this age, right? So we're feeling it. We're seeing what's happening in our world, and we are part of this comparison culture, right? And we're exposed to all this commercialism saying that we should get stuff just for being us, but they get it at a younger age, right? So the impact that it's having an impact at all ages, but for teens, it's like they were younger when they started, and it's much more intense than we got at that age, right? So maybe even a middle age, maybe my work ethic is different. And it's not that they're lazy. They're really highly motivated to resist, That's kind of part of, I explained some of that in the book, but they're not, they feel powerless, but they feel like there's this dichotomy, because it's like they feel really empowered, but they don't, not empowered, entitled, right? So people say, oh, Gen Z, they're so entitled. They're so entitled. Well, teens don't like, you tell me, Elena, do you like to hear that? I mean, it feels so awful, because they're feeling actually really powerless, really inadequate, and everyone's calling them entitled and lazy. And it doesn't match what they think of themselves, because they're struggling. What do you think, Elena?
Yeah, it's kind of like people looking out kind of on the outside too. If you have to kind of get the perspective of like people in that generation, like, okay, how do you actually feel compared to like, how do other people make you feel too?
Right, exactly. Do you think that your other teenagers don't like to be called entitled?
They probably wouldn't. No.
I don't know anyone who likes to be called that.
I can't think of anybody that.
It's a total insult, right? But and it's a misunderstanding of what they're going through. Though I get it, because there is a sense, but this is like, it's not because they're jerks or because they're egotistical. It's because it's been ingrained by our commercialism.
Right.
That you should just get stuff for just being you. Right. So it's like, this is the messages that they're getting all the time. Yeah. Why else would they think any, but it actually makes them feel powerless. So it's a huge problem, but if we understood what was happening, then we could sidestep it.
It's like, wow.
Yeah. When you don't understand it, it affects you,
Yeah. And it's just like, just that dichotomy too of like, kind of created the problem with all of this, and then turn around and complain that they're lazy and stuff as far as generation goes. It's like,
yeah. We're saying that also, but we're really blaming ourselves as parents, So we say like, oh, this generation, or like other adults, and the parents really take that on as it's their fault too. So the kids taking it on, the parents taking it on, like educators getting blamed, like everyone's, because it feels so out of control. And that's what we do when we feel out of control. We either blame ourselves or blame somebody else. And it just perpetuates continues the trauma really. And none of it's being healed. And so I feel like this book is like, this is what's happening. Let's stop fighting each other. Right. And start really having compassion and understanding each other. And I think that's where the major shift will come in.
Right. You and I have kind of history in anxiety, but like Elena doesn't have, anxiety. And a lot of parents that might be listening, or even their daughters, may not be experiencing it. And so I kind of want to talk about it from the perspective of looking in from the outside. So maybe those moms that have daughters that are experiencing anxiety but don't have it themselves, or the other way around, how to go about, connecting and supporting and helping them. Because I know, like, even with my husband, when I'm struggling with it and trying to explain it to him, he doesn't get it. And, as a parent, I can't imagine just almost feeling completely helpless about what to do.
That is so true. That's what the biggest conflict is, right? Is that helplessness. When someone has a lot of anxiety, they often say, you don't understand, because you feel so misunderstood, because it's so invisible. Nobody really gets it, and so you say, you don't understand. And so the family member or the loved one, often after hearing that so many times, often is like, well, maybe I don't understand.
Yeah.
And so it sets up this idea that you don't understand. But I even say that I address that early in the book. I'm like, set down the idea that nobody understands for a second, because people do understand. Like, we all have that biological fear response. We all have the adrenaline. We know what that feels like. We know what it feels like to be afraid of something. You can't talk to anyone. And I know maybe some people don't have anxiety and some people have anxiety, whatever. I don't know. I think we call it so many different things that most of us have it, but at least we understand it. Maybe we're not suffering as much, but we know what it feels like. We've had it before, right?
Right.
And there's a difference between suffering every day and then, but there's still an understanding of like what it feels like to be afraid of something. And so I think it's most important to connect around that instead of worrying like, I don't understand, or, because it really is more of a message that you feel helpless. to feel it, to think you don't understand. It's because you feel helpless and out of control, and you're so worried about this person that you want to get into control. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so you think, well, I don't know what to do. I can't fix it. So I must not really understand. Well, first of all, I want parents to read this book. I know it's written for teens, but I've had a lot of parents read it in the last week. It just came out, but they love it because it's like, I got all new perspectives. I understand what to do now. Yes. And that's what I do. I teach parents what to do as well. But it's like understanding, the biggest thing I want parents to tell kids, or partners to partners, anyone to tell their loved one if they're going through it, is we're not going to leave you like this. Like, this is temporary and you could get through it. And there's a lot of options out there, and we'll try one at a time until you get over this, but I'm going to be with you every step of the way. And so if say it's a kid who has anxiety, and, Elena could say that to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
But she's a daughter, but maybe your partner would. But a parent obviously could say that to their kids. It's like, we're not going to leave you like this. A lot of people get this. It's very common. It's easy to get, and we could get rid of it. And we'll try one thing at a time. Like, everything works different for each person. But, sometimes just deep breathing works for someone. Sometimes really talking about it and rethinking it works for somebody else. Sometimes just going to voice lessons to build your confidence cures your anxiety. I mean, sometimes breaking up in a relationship cures your anxiety, because a lot of it comes out of a context. You have to know. So you have to kind of think about what's the context it's coming out of. Understanding what it is, understanding it biologically is hugely important. And really, distraction is great. That's what someone else could do for you in the moment. Like, so in the moment when the anxiety, we could prevent anxiety from coming, but sometimes it does come. And sometimes when you're working on it and it's getting less and less and less, you still need that distraction.
Right.
Because if you give it all your attention, it's just going to stay there. And so you really want to take your mind space away from the anxiety and put it on something else. And so any family member could help with that. So so you were asking, if a parent has anxiety, what could the kid do to make them feel helpful? You could tell a story, engage them in some, hey, I saw this funny video, watch it with me. Something to just take their mind off it. And, I like kids to do that with their friends too, because friends think it's such a burden when your friend is anxious or when your friend is depressed or something, like you don't know what to do. And it's not like that. It's not your job to like heal their trauma or whatever. It's so much of a burden. But what a teen peer could do for another teen is distraction. Right. Because it's win-win. I mean, it doesn't bring you down at them, right? So any kind of being silly, distracting, watching something funny with them, telling a story about something else, whatever it is, like that's where teens could respond the best. Actually, it's the most thing that's needed. Like someone to listen, but then like the teen doesn't have to help the teen peer. It's too much.
Right. Exactly.
But, yeah. So.
Yeah. What do you do? It's like so many times you can kind of get into the, from the outside, it's like, you don't know what to do. It's like, what do I do? And just like a distraction is like the perfect thing. So
yes, right. I mean, we all feel out of control, right? Out of control is like a hallmark of anxiety. So people say I have control issues, but they say I don't have anxiety. I mean, it depends on how you define it, right?
Right.
And so we're defining anxiety all kinds of different ways, but to be really honest, people describe it all different ways, but it's working on them all the same way.
Right.
And it might come out in low self-esteem or, some people look really, really confident and they're not. They're dealing, they have their own little demons of self insecurity as well. And so, but that's often really invisible and nobody really knows that. So you feel like you're the only one.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and so what I hear you saying too, from a parent's perspective, if you're watching your loved one go through this too, to not also absorb the lie that you don't understand your child. Don't absorb that, and don't absorb that belief that there's a wall between you.
I am so glad that you got that, because it's such a huge message I want to get out, because it disconnects people to believe that lie that you don't understand. And so it's if we don't believe that lie, then we can stay connected, and anxiety can't hurt us as bad if we're connected. It needs us kind of to get us isolated and alone.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep. And a lot of times when I feel anxious, I just want to hide and just
worst thing you could do.
And it is the worst thing. And you don't want to, as a parent either, I don't want to you want to feel strong and you want to feel like a good influence on your child. And so the last thing you want to do is have them witness you going through something that's that tough either. So,
well, if they see you come out of it, or if they see you have hope, or like work hard and, you know, be like, hey, when something happens, you figure it out. And, you know, and like see you like learning and doing different stuff to help yourself, or the self-care things, just be like, yep, I'm walking every day. And that is a great example for your kids.
Right.
To see you doing those things, you know, so it's okay. Hey, yeah, we all go through hard stuff, and then this is what we have to do. We have to eat really good, and we go exercise every day, and we, you know, go get a massage or go to therapy, or, you know, do this to really take care of ourselves, because we don't have to stay suffering. That is a great modeling.
Yeah.
If your kids saw that you were suffering, but saw that you did some things and then got out of it.
And allow yourself to be vulnerable for your children too.
Absolutely. Then they know that when they get older and go through a hard time, or they do when they're young, then they know that okay, this is what I do. I do stuff to get myself out of it.
Yeah, because sometimes when you're little, when you're really young, you see your mom as like this perfect person. And like, I was talking with Mom actually a couple of days ago, like I was wondering like how old I was when I finally realized that her name wasn't Mom. Like she actually had like a normal name and stuff like that. So it kind of takes a while to see that your mom isn't regular normal human being and has problems, but if like she can like show you how to work through them, it kind of gives you a good example, like, hey, I can do this too. My mom's a normal human being, I'm a normal human being, she can do this, that means I can do this too.
Yeah. So what you're modeling is that agency, right? That you're an agent in life and you could do something, like you're responding to it. Yeah. That's so much more important than the emotional. So if you lost somebody you loved, and then, you know, and then Elena saw you, you know, grieving, but then being like, okay, I'm going to walk every day. I'm going to do yoga, you know, do shavasana to really kind of heal my body from that grief. We need that. We need those lessons in how to handle that. We don't see people dealing with grief good, because we have so many discourses like, don't overdo grief. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I think that's a huge problem. That's why anxiety is going up, is because we feel anything negative and we're like, we're not supposed to feel this.
Yeah. Yep. And as a parent
we
too,
did something, we're doing something wrong.
I'm gonna screw my children.
Right.
Thank you for listening to Lemons and Curls. We release podcasts every other week. Help us keep these podcasts ad-free by heading over to patreon.com/lemons and curls today and become a supporter. With your support, we can continue creating the podcast you love without interruption. Also, when you become a patron today, you'll get exclusive content and deals. You're not going to want to miss it. Now that we have had this wonderful talk with Jodi, we like to take a little bit of step back and allow Elena to give a lot of her perspective as to what was talked about during the conversations that we are having with our new friends. So first we talked about Generation Z. So you had mentioned earlier at the beginning of the podcast that you didn't even know there were generation gaps.
Nope. I was very confused about the whole thing.
What is Generation Z? So does it make more sense to you now?
Yeah.
Do you see it? Do you see the differences?
Yep. It makes a lot of sense, actually.
What do you see different about Generation Z? Jodi talks about how there's phones.
Yeah.
Can you see that as a big difference?
Yeah, because like Generation Z, we don't remember really a time, you remember a time where people didn't have computers and you had to have your friend's phone number memorized in your head, and you would dial it on the phone, and then you call their house and you ask their parents would answer and you had to ask for them. We don't even remember a time where we had to do that. We've always been able to just open your phone, press the button, call them, send them a text real quick, open up your laptop computer, take it with you. So, it's definitely different not having perspective of what it was like before people could do that.
Right. And it's a huge difference.
You can't even sometimes you can't even wrap your brain around it, the fact that people didn't have it because you never experienced people not having all electronics either.
Right. And I think that as a Generation X, we lose that, and we need to remember that you have never experienced it.
Yeah.
And it's not your fault.
Yeah.
Right? Like, okay, I remember it's fun to have nostalgia. It's fun to see these old phones that were attached to the wall at the antique stores and stuff like that. It's fun to have that nostalgia. But at the same time, we need to understand as Generation X that it's not your fault that you don't know that. And there's no, we don't need to be accusing you of not understanding, because of course you were never part of it. You never were there to experience it. So your life started at the point of instant notification of what people are doing.
Yeah. I mean, when I was born in 2003. So they probably, there were like smartphones then, right?
There are no smartphones. No, it's like flip phones.
I remember Dad had a flip phone. I sent it to the washing machine a couple times. But that's another topic. I do remember when I was really little, my dad having flip phones and stuff like that. But still, that's different. You can easily, they're really small. You can fit them in your pocket, carry them around all the time. I've never used a phone hooked up to a wall before because I've never needed to.
Right. And
excuse me, goodness gracious.
Having the instant messaging and everything, you didn't create it.
No.
We created it.
Yeah.
Generation X created the instant messaging. They created this between, and into the millennials. And so really we need to put in perspective that Generation Z is born into this, and they're trying to figure out now how to live with this craziness. Yeah. How to live with all of this information just being thrown at them at all times. And this expectation for them to be instantly on call, but then ignore it at the same time. It's okay, you have to be available. You have this cell phone. I bought you this cell phone. I'm paying for the plan.
When I call you, you better answer.
You better answer. Oh, but ignore all the stuff that's coming at you.
Yeah.
It's like this.
Stop being on your phone all the time, but have your phone with you, but ignore it. But they, the phone people basically make your phone too intentionally that you're on it all the time. They don't make it so that you, they're trying to suck you into it too. They make it easy to open your phone with just your thumbprint. You pick up your phone and it unlocks. You don't have to type in a password.
Right.
And then the Face ID is even you just pick it up and it unlocks.
Right.
So they make it easy to be on your phone. That's basically their intent. So you like your phone and you buy a new one that's more expensive and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, it's driven by people wanting to have instant access, but then it's actually creating, so many more problems on top of it. And so as Generation X, I need to keep remembering and keep in the forefront of my head. And so having this conversation with Jodi was just really awesome, because just made me really aware that your generation is so different and understandably, and that I need to stop comparing the fact that you don't know what it was like.
Yeah.
Because of course you don't know what it was like.
I wasn't born yet.
It's okay. All right. So the other thing that we talked about with Jodi was the anxiety side of understanding each other. If you're in the middle of anxiety, understand that people understand you.
Yep. And there are other people that exist that have basically the same anxiety as you.
Right. And there's even people out there that, your mom, even if she doesn't have that anxiety, she has anxious feelings.
Yeah.
She understands what it feels like to be anxious.
Everyone's anxious at some point. I mean, you can't if you have an anxiety, you're always anxious, and if you don't, you're never.
So what are times when you feel anxious?
Mostly trying new things. I remember we talked about that. Was it the last interview at the end? We talked about how I'm sometimes anxious about actually trying new things.
Right. So you have anxious feelings.
Yeah.
But do you feel like you suffer from anxiety?
No.
Because why? Why do you not feel like you suffer from anxiety?
I mean, I do have anxious feelings about stuff, but it's not on a regular basis. I mean, it kind of is if I'm trying a lot of new things, but yeah,
it doesn't stop you. You don't think?
No.
Okay.
I think if like you and Dad too, like if I want to try something new and I really want to do it, and then it comes down to doing it and I decide I don't want to do it, you guys are like, you are doing it anyways.
Right.
Like whether you wanted to do this earlier, and like I know you talked about how you really wanted to do it, and we're gonna force you to do this and you're gonna thank us later. Like that's happened a lot. So I think if you guys hadn't done that, I would be a lot more anxious about actually trying new things. Because I've learned too, like, okay, like you go somewhere new, like a Civil Air Patrol camp, and the first day you're like, I want to go home. But I know from previous experience that, okay, the first day is always the worst. If I can get past the first day, and like, I don't want to go home. I want to stay here. This is so much fun. But you have to get past that first day, and you have to find out, like the first night especially, you have to find out like where your boundaries are too. Like if I went home every night because I wanted to go home, I like missed everybody, like a little bit of homesickness, I want to go home, then I never would have gotten past that and be like, okay, it's just the first night, tomorrow I'll be fine.
So do you think as far as advice for other parents, that if they notice that their kids are starting to back off and get scared of trying something, that it's okay to say, hold their feet to the fire, say like, no, you wanted to do this?
Yeah. If they didn't want to do it in the first place, really, they were like scared about like the whole time, maybe it's okay to step back a little bit, like, okay, we'll try this when you're ready. But if they really want to do it, and you get there and you're about to do it, they're like, you're like, no, do it.
Right.
Yeah. So you have to kind of base it off of like what they told you before. Like if they told you they're really excited about this, and then like, because when you get, like you start to do something, like you get there, you kind of like change your mind a little bit. You're like,
that's so natural, isn't it? It is so natural to be nervous about, the unknown and what's going on. And those are big changes when things happen. So that nerve and that anxiety that happens is completely natural. Right. And so I can see how you could easily have anxiety problems by kind of allowing that anxiety to stop you from doing stuff. But I can see now like how you have gotten so confident in doing things by kind of being forced into doing things. I mean, it's kind of natural. It feels bad on my end, and part of me is like, gosh, I feel, I sometimes felt bad about making you do it.
I mean, like sometimes anxiety is not necessarily a bad thing. Like I learned about in Civil Air Patrol that stress isn't a bad thing either. Like if there's too much of it, of course it is, but like a little bit. Like if you're going to try new things and you feel like a tiny little bit anxious and you like step on the brakes, like, no, I can't do this, I feel anxious about it, that's not necessarily a good thing. Like a little bit of anxiety, like you're trying something new, you're a little bit anxious about it, and that's natural. Like everyone is nervous about like going to a new school, trying like a camp for a certain time, going on an airplane, stuff like that.
And as parents, we want to protect our kids from feeling anxious. We have this thought in our head that if you're feeling anxious, that we're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Right. And because we don't want to feel anxious, and we have our own anxieties. And so I think a lot of times as parents, we project those anxieties onto our children, and we enable their anxieties by, be trying to protect them. And in essence, it happens to backfire. So yeah. And it's been really a fun journey, I'd have to admit, watching you try so many new things and so many different things. It has been actually inspiring to me to try new things and to go back, because like I was supported pretty much with things I wanted to do as a kid, but I wasn't, my parents didn't push me and hold my feet to the fire with everything like we have done with you. And so I've been watching I've done it to you, and it's been inspiring that, hey, I need to hold my own feet to the fire and try new things. So that has been a really fun journey to kind of go through.
Yeah.
All right. And then next week we have our third part to this conversation with Jodi. And
so it continues on.
It does. It's
One
like
more
my
part.
favorite part. It's my favorite part too. Yes. So you are not going to want to miss it. So thank you for joining us for Lemons and Girls.
Next Monday, we will post as the next. I was going to say the third half. That doesn't make sense. The 1/3 part of this interview on Monday next week.
Become a patron at patreon.com/lemons and curls to get exclusive content. Become a patron today and help us keep our podcast ad-free. You can find a link in the podcast description.